Yes, sir, if you would, I'll just, preface it a little bit. Mr. Ferguson and I met with Dr. Stein and his team the other day and presented the letter that you approved at the last board meeting, and I feel pretty certain that tomorrow, from what I understand, we'll get a letter acknowledging that the plan suffices, and that we need to continue to move forward with the development of a process in which we will meet suitability and growth needs. So what I've done is ask Scott to come talk about a couple of options that we could look at. We're looking at trying to raise about $32 million to build the elementary school, the middle school, convert the junior high, and as I think I told you in the newsletter, we did get our funding for that conversion on Thursday, the 30th. Thought it'd come out the 29th, and they actually, I think, did it on the 30th, whatever Thursday was. But we did get that notification, and we'll have to enter into a partnership agreement with them. We'll have 4 years to use that money. So when we looked at what we received under the partnership for those facilities in the last go-around in the submission in 2012, we used that dollar figure knowing that we probably can expect a little more because our wealth index has actually gone down. We get about 50 cents on the dollar for new construction. But using that, we calculated it will need approximately $32 million to help fund those projects, the cafeteria, the elementary, middle school, and the conversion of the junior high. Those would be the projects that we're doing the plan that we have to meet in order to meet our suitability and growth.
Call those off one more time.
Yes, sir. Yeah, elementary, new elementary school, new middle school, cafeteria at the high school, and then the conversion of the current Bryant Middle School to a junior high configuration.
If we say, this is our list, if we say that, is that going anywhere like or has it already gone to the state that says, here's what we're gonna do?
Yes, sir, that's what the letter stated that we approved in the last board meeting.
Do we get any wiggle room about how we do that?
How we do it, in terms of,
Well, if we say we're gonna convert part of the building to some other function, that gives us a funded amount that we are trying to budget. It doesn't say anything about how we're gonna do that.
no, sir, what that does is just give them an overview. We would still have to submit project submittals in February of 2016. So whatever those projects would look like.
So is our architect already being commissioned to get it to a point where we can say, yeah, we can do that scope of work for this amount of money?
No, sir, not at this point. We have not. We just still have the numbers that we had before, based upon those projections that they gave us working with the construction management team.
And 32 million is our estimated part.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And that's why I asked Scott to try to give us a couple of options to look at.
Thank you. My part's kind of short, and just to give you a couple of points of information to consider as you move forward. So there are 3 pages in the handout that I gave you. The first one, Schedule 4, is the district's existing bonded debt. You can see that the district has approximately $4.4 million in annual debt payment for the next 11 years. And then the district's debt drops down to $2.3 million, and at that same point is when you lose a good percentage of your debt mills. And they fall off, and then all of your debt mills expire at the end of the 38-39 school year. So one of the things that Dr. Kimball shared is that you as a board have challenged he and his team to come back and find some annual cost savings. And could we potentially take those cost savings and in the future use them to make a debt payment? And so the second page of your handout, which is labeled option 1, level payments on a construction bond that will net out $32 million for projects. So if you look over to the far right, the next to last column, there's a bond issue dated June 1st of 17, and that's just arbitrary, but that would be after the May 17 partnership is released. This would be good, you would wait for the September 17 election and do it sometime later in the school year. But if you just went out and borrowed straight construction bonds, the payment would be just under $1.9 million per year. But I highlighted on the far right side in yellow that it gives you an uneven total debt payment each year. So you would have to have carved out of your budget by the 17-18 school year $1.9 million that you could now apply to the debt payment. And then after 11 years, as some of the other debt pays off, your debt payment will drop back down to the $4.5 million. And then again, when we get to the end, you'll see it drops again to $1.8 million. So the loan itself has level payments for 30 years. But because your existing debt is not level, when you look at the far column on the right, it's not level as well. So the district would have the ability, if the voters would extend the existing mills, to net out $32 million for projects without a tax increase. But it would require voter approval to extend those debt mills out. Now, if we said that we don't want to extend the debt mills, we just want to go out where they are 27, 28, but make them more equal, then the payment jumps considerably. It's about $3.5 million per year, which I think is more than what we challenged Dr. Kimball to come up with at this point. So just some general points of budget. If you can save $1.9 million and you're willing to go back to the voters in 17, you can borrow $32 million without a tax increase.
Did you say that one more time?
If you go back to the voters in 2017 and ask to extend the existing village, which will take it out 30 years from the election, you can borrow $32 million. The payment would be $1.9 million per year, and if you've already cut that out of your budget, then you would be able to do it without a tax increase. Now, conversely, would be, let's say you only got $2 million, and that's all sustainable you can do year after year, then we have to ask for enough millage to get to $900,000. So part of it will be, as you work with the administration on, is that number sustainable? And just for me, $1.9 million sounds a little high. So I want to give you one other thing just to think about is maybe the bottom, if 1.9 is the ceiling.
Scott, before you go there, I'm not sure I follow what you're doing here in the yellow.
Okay, I just wanted to point out that the extra $1.9 million that you need is not for the whole 30 years. It's really only for 11 years until some of the other debt pays off. But I couldn't work around those other loans very well because they have high enough payments relative to what you're borrowing. So it does create the necessity for you to cut $1.9 million out of your budget. And we're going to do this without a millage increase.
Okay, so I understand what you do with the millage and how you would raise your millage in order to sustain your borrowing. But how do you prove that you cut out this much out of your expenses in order to do the same?
All right, great question. Currently, the debt mills generate more money than is necessary to make your annual payment. And so that's transferring over to operations, and you're using it to pay expenses. So you would have to know, working with Ms. Drummond and Dr. Kimbrell, that you have saved that $1.9 million per year ongoing so that it remains in the debt account and is not transferring over for operational expenses. It would just be internally something that you would account for, because there's nothing, as far as the voters are concerned or the way the county collects it, it comes in as debt bills, and it's your responsibility to make the debt payment and let the excess transfer over to the middle.
Is there any difference in the construction bonds we're selling, that we would sell here versus by raising the millage?
This would still be on the ballot, because we're asking the voters to extend the millage. So the $32,750,000, that amount will be on the ballot. Names of the projects will be on the ballot, and permission for the voters to borrow for 30 years, and then at the bottom, it would say, this represents the same rate presently being collected. Whereas your last two ballots have said this represents an increase of
One thing okay, would you clarify for me, when you say extend the millage is gonna perpetuate itself, it's what you do with the income?
I guess, I know that there are some groups, particularly during last campaign, that try to make that point, and that's factually not correct. The debt mills are always for a period of time. Every ballot that the district puts together that says we're going to ask for debt mills has a number of years on it. And when that, just like your millage now, you can see where it drops off in your debt payment goes down. When that date gets here, the county will no longer collect that tax, regardless of what the district does.
Okay, so what you're saying is, if I understand it, as long as you have a debt out there and it comes time for voters to approve the millage, it's gonna stay on there whether they approve it or not, until the debt's paid, and then it may not.
That first part is correct, but once the voters approve the tax and you borrow the money, the next year, when you're not asking for an increase, you're just saying this is what we had last year.
Right.
They can defeat it and you don't lose it because you already borrowed the money. But you have a fixed rate, fixed term loan.
Right.
And when you make that last payment, the debt mills automatically are taken off the books.
So what happens, I like to see both sides of the equation.
Sure.
If it comes time to extend it, and for whatever reason they choose not to extend it, then what happens?
Any defeat of a millage proposal, automatically last year's approved ballot is in effect. And so that's why none of the mills roll off until you get to the 30-year period. If that's how long they've approved it is, anytime there's a defeat, it defaults to the last year ballot that's approved. So you don't lose anything if you ask for the extension, you just don't get the extension. Just like when you asked for a millage increase and the voters said no, you didn't lose what you had, it defaults to the previous year when they approved.
So when would we ask for this extension?
That would really be up to the board. You could ask for it any time in 16 or 17, depending on where you were in the process, how certain you were of getting the state match. You know, typically at this point, you would wait till after May 1st of 2017, when the state releases how much money you're going to get, and then you would go to them either in the summer or fall of 2017, so that you could say, here's how much money we got from the state, here's the extension we're asking for, and here are the projects we're asking
So what we're saying, Mr. Taxpayer, is your taxes are not gonna increase. We're just gonna keep asking you for it a little bit longer.
Yes, and we would tell them the number of years.
Versus saying, we need a millage increase, which means your taxes are gonna go up.
Going to go up the very next year. That's the trend.
And the reason why we could do this 17, weren't able to do it last time is because these bonds payments weren't going to be real.
No, really, it's because you wanted to borrow more money that you could make payment on without a millage increase. So you were getting some benefit by extending, some benefit by restructuring. But that was not enough to make the payment for the projects the board wanted to pursue. So we were in $65 million range, 73. And so it required a millage increase. So when you cut that in half, and you've now taken potentially $1.9 million out of your existing budget to make the debt payment. Instead of asking voters for a new revenue source, you're coming out of your own budget.
I guess I'm lost on if we were to go to voters and just ask for an extension, how would our assessment growth have kept up with enough money to staff the school and furnish it? We'd be depending totally upon the assessment to have grown to make those expenses without another increase.
Growth money? to that.
That's why we have to cut that to the line.
But you're using all of that.
I know.
Well, and all of that comes back to her question. Part of what we did in the last two village creations was, I think, the discussion of, we open these facilities, this type of chapter, and we don't ask for enough village food service in that constantly to operate. We're breaking the holes and doing period of business. So those would be attractive to pay for the facilities and to now some extra to operate. This is kind of going to the other extreme. We really gotta have those facilities, and we're finding our adults. And this is another way to get it. It is certainly a much higher budget.
I see where this gets the building built. I don't see where this gets us the staff and furnishings.
Well, I mean, I think that's part of the issue that we've got to talk about. We're trying to use the 1.9. Eventually, for the next 11 years, I believe, you've got to guarantee that you are operating well, not utilizing any of the funds that are generated on those meals above what's required to pay your debt. So you're carving out part of those meals, and instead of if it takes, Angie, I don't remember how many meals it takes to pay our debt right now, and let's say it's 3.5, 4 meals.
3.5.
Let's just say make it easy numbers, let's say it's 4. Now, we would probably have to set aside another, probably, one meal generates how much in our district?
About 700,000 or 800,000.
Yeah, so we
We're
would have
talking about almost 3
almost 3 meals.
meals. There are one of these that are going to operations. They're in that category and pulling that back out and saying, we're gonna apply. So, well, let's kind of go off the line and go to the last page. It's $1,900,000 not sustainable for us. Long term. Is there a way to get to the $1 million without going to $1 million now? Option 2 is not as efficient from a financial standpoint, because it's like when you go and you buy a car, are you negotiating for the purchase price, $40,000, or are you negotiating for the payment? So if you tell me 500 is the payment, but you're going to let me go 6 years instead of 5 years, you're going to pay more, but it fits in your budget. So option 2 takes the debt payment, 4.9, and drags it all the way out and restructures all the other bond issues, some of which we're going to give up that are great low rates of interest. But we're giving up the low rate of interest for the low monthly payment. So again, financially, this isn't the most efficient way to do it. From an annual payment standpoint, this gets the facilities at a $500,000 a year cut to operating expenses rather than $1.9 million. And so that's probably more doable than $1.9 million. But it is not as efficient. But sometimes you have those trade-offs. You would certainly not be the first school district that has looked at the total annual payment and said, what can we do without a tax increase? Even if I give up some lower rate interest, this allows me to get the facilities I need for the payment that I have.
And then I guess 500,000 is about the difference if you take the column from page 1 and the column from page 3, the total column, we can just subtract that. Yeah, get to that's 27.
And so you can see that we carried that full debt payment for full 30 years, and that's what really allows you to drive down the annual payment. So the increase is only $500,000. So there's no magic between $500,000 and $1 million. You as a board can come back and say it's $600,000, it's $750, or you know what? It's only $250, and we're going to have to blend some little too. This is just information that the Kimball wanted to provide to you to see there is a way to get there without a budget increase if we really keep an eye on the budget. So that's something the board must understand.
That's also taking into account that we're putting $3 million a year into the building fund for the next 2 years, plus the 2.5 we put in this year. So, saving that 8.5.
And that's how you're getting $40 million. You're taking cash out of your building fund. Barring 32, you're doing $40 million for projects, right?
Right. And this there were some of these that weren't mature at the time that we could restructure. We had the last ones, right? We couldn't do all, right, we're on the third, option 2.
That's right, I thought there was something in there that we were not able to do in the last one.
There's one thing, and I apologize to the rest of y'all, when you say the board can do something, you're talking to one board member, that somebody's gonna tell me what that means, and advise me what we should ask for, or what, why we would do this, or why we would do that.
Well, and that's why we're having the work session, is to just kind of talk about it, because Mr. Daly had a good point. You know, if you build a new middle school and a new elementary school to house the students that are moving in here, you've got staff. Then you've got to furnish it, then you've got to pay the utility costs, the operational costs, the insurance costs, all the things that go with that. You know that you're going to generate some money from the state through the foundation, but what you've done is reduce those other maintenance and operation monies that you convert from your debt. So you're actually saying, okay, we're going to take some of that money and set it aside like you would at home. Say, okay, we're going to buy that third car for the son who's going to college. You've got to pull the money out of the operating, our home budget to pay for that car for next month.
The other thing different is, I don't have a legal balance anymore. Well, I do too. If I write a check and I ain't got the money, I'll get in trouble. But other than that, when we say our legal balance is within a certain range,
Yes, sir.
we don't want to get below that, we don't want to get above that. But is that our way of getting to the point we need to each year is tax bases up or down or sideways or whatever it is?
The assessment helps, the growth in the assessment helps because as your assessment growth increases, the number of bills that you have generates more money.
Increase.
It doesn't help you on the first $6,600 because the state will reduce what they pay, but it helps you with those meals above, meals that are currently dedicated as debt bills. So, that's what you use to try to help generate fund balances. But now we're talking about building fund balance versus the ending balance, which are two different ones.
But the reality is that, kind of what Mr. Moore was asking, how do you know what that monthly amount is, and how do you, you're making an obligation to basically balance your budget to a certain dollar amount every year.
Every year.
For at least 1, 2, 3, 8 years.
8 years.
Period. So when, whatever you think you're getting growth-wise on assessment, or more kids coming in, or whatever, that's all you're getting, and you've obligated your debt, you're gonna have to make it. So if it's a really bad year and you only get 20 new students, and we have another recession and houses are stagnant on their appreciating assessment value, you may be sitting here. Am I understanding
Yes,
that?
ma'am, you're
That's
understanding.
the only way you do it. You know how much you have, and this is it.
And that's why you try to carry a certain fund balance for a bad year like that.
Yeah.
But you've got some ongoing costs that are going to be associated
Yes.
with these new
That's right.
facilities. That's, historically, it's not the growth of assessment that allows you to do that. It's the fact that incrementally the assessment goes up and it rolls a certain percentage goes off. You get that plus the growth money. Growth money has been very kind to the Bryant School District. The formula is very good. It generates a lot of money that comes in that particular year. And you may have added a couple of teachers, but that year you probably didn't have to build any buildings out of your fund balance. So it helps you to continue to operate. But in this case, what we're talking about right now is we're anticipating operating next year with $3 million less expenditures. And what we're asking is, what target do we want to look at? And again, that's what we wanted to do tonight is start talking about that so y'all can kind of be thinking in your minds what we want to do. Let us kind of project some of those cost factors that we're going to have. Because it's going to cost when we open a new elementary school. It's not just building the building, it's everything that goes with that.
And the good thing is that you will have 15, 16
To see how.
See how, and then we'll be into 16, 17, before you really are gonna make this decision. And you'll see, was that painful, or, yeah, it was bothersome, I think that's not the right word, but we were able to do it, or, that's not sustainable. But this is just information as you move into 15, 16, to see what you're gonna end up doing with the money potentially, and how that helps the district out. Can I answer any other questions?
Good information. I mean, it's definitely an option.
And that's what I asked Scott, what's the least that we could do? Well, the least is, if you don't have to ask for a millage increase, what are our options? And then if you want later in the year, if you want to come back and say, okay, what would we have to do if we had a blended? We asked for a mill or two, and what would that mean? And it may be that decision even doesn't have to be made until this time next year, as we're talking about these things.
Y'all, excuse me, I'm gonna go coach baseball. So.
I think you need to do
Thank you,
that.
Scott.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. Anybody else have any further questions on that number one item? Our future conflict is going to be salaries.
Yes,
That's where it's going to come down, whether it's staffing goals, or whether it's giving raises, or whether it's being able to meet the steps.
That's exactly.
I mean, that's where it's going to come.
Yeah.
You're right.
And because of the half dollar we typically get each year under adequacy, it's barely going to make the difference in our stepping position. Barely.
You always have rising costs like electricity and utility, everything else that's going to go along with it. So.
Yeah,
That's
again,
what
I'm
really
trying to-
concerns me to keep in mind. And you don't know if 2 years from now, if the legislature's going to see fit to give more or less in the increased advocacy. It may be stagnant at that. They may come back to do less. That's the harder part about that obligation.
See,
But
we're gonna operate next year under the plan that we presented to y'all, and we're working through right now.
yeah,
We'll see, and, let it be known by our staff. I don't see any way in the world, unless we just saw phenomenal student growth, and I don't think we will, but because it's school choice, and not taking those school choice students, I don't think we're gonna see that kind of growth. I don't see any wiggle room at all in the budget to do any kind of bonuses or raises next year. And I think everybody understands that that's part of what we're going to operate on the next year. Get into that second year, it's going to be tough to hang on to some people if we're not careful, if we let our salaries get out of being competitive in this area.
yeah.
All right, I guess item number 2 is number 1 for superintendent evaluations, Mr. Bailey.
thank you. I wanted us to spend a few minutes talking about standard 1. That was the suggestion at our meeting on April the 20th, and they're included in your in the e-board file, a list of all the standards. I think my understanding is we'll only be doing standards 1 and 2 for the pilot evaluation. And I thought we should spend a little bit of time on standard 1, in particular, reading through it. I think, and you may have already done that, but I think that where the rubber meets the road for us is in this pilot evaluation process. How exactly will we measure the performance of the superintendent against the standard, and what are the markers we're looking for as we try to do that? And so, with that, have you had a chance to read it? If you hadn't, do you want us to take a few minutes to go through it? We'll start there. Would you like a few minutes? Okay. All right. So then, when we look at the 4 functions, letters A, B, C, and D, what are some of the actions or products that we've seen from the superintendent that would help us assess the standard?
I think our process that we went through right before the village, where
The strategic plan.
strategic planning,
Everything now.
that to me was you know, kind of what that was all about, and then engaged more than the board, engaged, you know, multiple different committees and groups, and we had that all brought to the sheriff, so we worked from that.
One thing that I hope we can do, like, is we recently established a mission statement and a vision. And we've got some goals on our master plan. And if we were to start working on one of those, figure out which one of them would be the top one, and put the framework for that, but to get the new mission statement and the vision statement in front of the people to where they know it by heart.
Yeah.
You can ask anybody, even ask me, and I'll be able to say.
And that brings up a good point, Mr. Wishart, because we'll soon be printing handbooks, and won't we be able to have that in there?
Oh, yes. I think that was in the, what we've got right now, that's all been changed.
Okay.
And I would hope, I don't want it to be redundant, that some schools have their mission statement, but it's not unique and inclusive of the districts necessarily. So I would hope that could be unified when we do that.
The campus statement should be the district statement.
Yeah. Or at least incorporated in it somehow or another.
But,
What are some of the other products and actions we've already seen from the superintendent to help us assess the standard? I wrote that he's had Manny Scott, and he'll have another gentleman, I forget the one you said was coming in the fall, Todd Whitaker, to help talk about working with kids and putting that mission and vision into practice.
we're having got the problem, so.
It's fun.
I think the other things along the similar lines is the way that he has, for instance, changed that first meeting where now he has everyone coming together.
Absolutely.
That shows his philosophy and a joint vision, a collective vision, and we're putting everyone together. And
If there was a matrix of that first, a matrix that said, this is my plan for each one of these four. This is my way of measuring its success, hopefully. And then later on, perhaps, here's the results of the plan and the steps that we were taking.
And that's in the portion he completes.
Right.
When it talks about, in letters B and C, particularly in letter B, that promote organizational learning and creating the plans to achieve those goals, I know that's happened probably more incrementally probably with Dr. Walters working with principals to set up goals for schools. And in the coming year, as part of the principal PGP, I would think. I know that's been done, I know we not have talked about it, but.
Yes, each one of the principals, I mean, they have school goals and they also have their own personal goals of what they feel like their growth areas are they need to work on in order to reach those goals.
And the school goals align with the mission and vision of the district. I mean, we're not so far out of bounds there.
And they're based on the data, what their schools show.
And then in function D, I think and I know we have only worked with Dr. Kimball for 10 months, if my math is right. Promote a continuous and sustainable improvement through a systemic process of evaluation and plan revision. We've set a plan, we haven't gone through and revised it. I think we're doing a little bit of that with the village, of course, but I mean, in terms of, I think we're gonna do that, we just haven't had all the time yet to do it, because we've just tried to put some things into place. So that may be, as we go through this, I think that may be an area where we feel like we don't have enough product or action to record, but it doesn't inhibit us from assessing the standard, I don't, unless somebody else feels differently, I don't think it would. Are there any other questions that we have about standard one?
Does Dr. Kimball have any questions about that?
No, sir, I read them, I said when he said that the other night, I said, that's the ones that I picked.
Yeah.
Feel that a couple of those are, I've marked myself the assessment as just being in a progressing state, not even reaching proficiency in those yet, because we've got a lot of work to do. We've only fleshed out the one out of the 5 goals.
Yes.
We've got the communications piece, we've got the instructional achievement piece. Those other 4 have got to be fleshed out. We've spent most of our time and energy on the facility.
And I think that's, when we look at this and talk about this, that's what we have to keep in mind. When you're evaluating someone coming into a new position,
Absolutely.
within that first year, there is no way they're going to have achieved all of the things. If there was a plan that was already in place and everybody was already working on it, and you're picking it up, it might be a little different. But that's not the case. I mean, there was new development of everything that had to occur. And it's just not going to happen in
Yep.
9 months.
And I know, and forgive me because I may not be as familiar with the deadlines, but my understanding is that we would take this, when we do your evaluation in January, this would be what we're assessing on. Is that everyone's?
That's the plan. You know, I don't know that at some point that time frame doesn't change.
Okay.
I mean, I'm a firm believer.
And I ask that because I feel like, should we be providing some kind of feedback to Dr. Cam and Butcher before then? Is it incumbent upon us as participants in the pilot to somehow report out some data to them prior to that time? I mean, or is there a deadline for us to respond?
I don't think they've gotten that far with
Yeah,
it.
well, and from previous work, it's not data, they're not gonna collect data as far as ratings. What they're gonna collect from you is feedback on process.
Yes.
They wanna know what worked about this process, what didn't work, what do we need to change. That's the kind of stuff information they wanna get from the pilot.
So, Dr. Kimbrell, on standard 1, I assume there's a self-evaluation per standard, or am I incorrect on that?
Per standard and per function.
Okay, so have you, I know that part of this entails a self-evaluation on your part. What kind of deadline do you want to set, or do we want to set for him for completing that? Do we feel like we need that right away, or does he need more time and to reflect, or do we need more time to think about what we want to do? So what are some next steps for
Well, I
us?
think we were supposed to have that done by the last work session that we did. So I've gone through and done that
Okay,
and could share that with you at some point so that we could work together to develop what those goals could be and then have conversations about what kind of evidence you'd be looking for
okay.
from that perspective. And, you know, for instance, in 1B, collect and use data to identify goals, assess organizational effectiveness and promote organizational learning. So, to me, that's one that is progressing. We have not gotten where we need to be because we just developed the goals recently. And the only goal we've developed is the facilities goal. So, you know, I think the assessment of that, where we are today, is part of the work we did tonight.
Yes.
And continues to be part of that evidence as we continue to build a plan around the facility. The key now is going to be fleshing out the other 4 and utilizing those in the same aspect that we're doing here. And looking for evidence of communication and that goal, how effectively are we assessing how effective our communication plan is? What are those things we'll be looking for? Are they surveys? Are they feedback loops that we develop with both staff, students, and parents and patrons? What is it that we put into place, or I've helped lead to put into place to assess that? What's that data look like? And what are we looking for evidence? So, to me, that's a clear issue that's got to be fleshed out, and I've got to work on to get to those other indicators that we talked about over here under proficiency. If we could go be someday be exemplary. 1D, again, it's a systemic process for evaluating that plan. We're still working on the plan.
So I'm gonna make this suggestion at the next work session, or I don't know if our board meeting if the agenda is so big that we would or would not want to do this at a regular monthly
Can
meeting.
I ask you a question before we go there? I guess I have a concern about what we're doing here. I understand the pilot project and that we're trying to help develop the process here. I understand that. But what we're doing tonight is we're talking more about Dr. Kimball's evaluation. And in my mind, his evaluation is something that this board needs to do in executive session, and whatever concerns that we air about that evaluation needs to be done at that level, and it does not need to be done in an open work session. And I feel like that we're kind of on the fringe of some of that right now, and quite honestly, you're the one talking about it, so that's okay.
Yeah, and I'm comfortable with
Well,
that.
Yeah, I know you are. I know you are, but I just don't, I'm not sure that's appropriate. And I have a concern about that, so I'd like.
The interesting part, and I did find it very interesting, being in the work sessions with folks around the evaluation. It was very different than what I expected. I was thinking that we were working on a tool, we were going to use this tool every year in Dr. Kimball's main evaluation. That's not at all what it is. Not at all. It is really the tool that they developed was quite massive. And they're suggesting that it's not even done every year because it is so massive.
That just pieces of it.
That just pieces of it are done. And the way they're suggesting it, and I think it's mainly because of the level the superintendent looks at, is they are extremely actively engaged in the development of the whole piece. It's not, it's very, there were pieces of what I think we've done that have been right exactly on target with this superintendent evaluation. Our tool we've used has been really pretty along the same lines. This piece was really, really different, and that really having the superintendent in a meeting like this bring what he wants to work on. He is developing from this tool his own PGP, his own improvement plan. And at the professional level that they're at, he's expected to work with you at the point of saying, I walked into Meeting Village, and that's the first piece of the plan I worked on, and now I want to work on these other pieces, and it is a very open, it's a very different process. Am I off base on that?
No, I mean, and I think that's the work for the superintendent of the board, but I think tonight's work here, how do we go about that? What are the standards that we can agree need to be worked on, and what are the functions within those good standards that we need to work on? And so that's why I provide the feedback that I have. It's not any different than what we're doing with the teachers. Anymore, it's not what we refer to as the dog and pony show. It's about a professional relationship that you have as an administrator with teachers. We're talking about the relationship that you have with the board and the administrator, the superintendent in this case. True, the discussions about how effective I've been in reaching those are done in executive session. But the conversation, since this is kind of pilot and new thing, is an opportunity for us to talk as
What would we look for? What are the benchmarks? What are the actions?
what are those things that we need to link on what table to talk about.
What would be the criteria on the scoreboard, not necessarily what the score would be?
That's right. And the score,
That's very.
that's a good
Yeah.
analogy.
Good.
know, what are the things that we're gonna keep score on, not what the score is.
And then the other part of it confused, still really confused on, is the fact that if we're not evaluating you and establishing this criteria every year for all of those pieces, then truly, all we're gonna be evaluating you on is this one area. The rest of what we've typically done is now going to
Go away.
go away.
It's,
And I mean, am I,
yeah, I mean, it's, because it's not once a year thing.
yeah. Well, and
Because
that's the,
I mean, it's not that we're going to executive session every month and talk about this or that didn't happen or did happen, or we're not seeing this evidence that may need to happen. But periodically, there will be those discussions, and then you'll be looking for evidence throughout the year. And, you know, it'll be up to me to also point out this is evidence under function, you know, 2A.
And that over time, we may decide that it's important that we go move on to standard 4 or standard 6. And that for a year's time, those are the only two lenses we apply when we do your evaluation.
so then maybe we need to change our policies about the super, see, that's where it gets confusing, okay? Do I?
I agree, because I think we're doing it at the wrong time.
Because I've always felt like it's the wrong time, but maybe the policies need to read, that we will engage in an ongoing, you know, evaluation dialogue with the superintendent, or something that says we have to evaluate over time, not
With
in
checkups or
January.
what, yeah.
January's just
January.
contract.
Yeah.
January is when you're going to contract. Does that make sense? Because I think
I think
that's where I get part of my
that's the direction.
confusion
And
is.
someday, you know, I wish this state would move away from January and move to.
I mean, or is it state law that
Decision.
says January?
No,
Okay.
See, and
It's
what
just
I think,
practice, I think.
personally, I think, and I've advanced this several times in the past, that superintendents ought to change jobs in December.
Yeah.
That's when you really, I mean, I know that's confusing for staff, the rest of the staff, and maybe, you know, the inconsistency that would occur over the school year. But from January through June is when you're building and planning for
Yeah.
that next year. That's when your budget's being, that's when
Yeah.
your staff, that's when you do all the things that we're doing right now. And
not the summer.
typically, you change superintendents in July.
Yeah.
And so you inherit, whatever decisions we make prior to that to implement.
But if we engage in an ongoing evaluation, professional dialogue, then some of that, you know, goes by the wayside. We still have to approve your contract at a certain point in time, but that part about having to do this formal evaluation should be removed from that, because we're going down a different path.
Well, and it should be updated to reflect that we're
Yes.
moving towards the new, and I know that we probably can't put it in policy, or maybe we can. I mean, this is not rolled out for the whole state as the rule of, that everybody's following yet, but we will need to amend it in some way to reflect that, and then part of that means that we have an ongoing dialogue with you with checkups as needed to assess the product and review the goals.
To review the goals, looking at the evidence, and changing the evidence you'll look at periodically too,
Yeah.
because sometimes the evidence is not going to be what you
If it's
thought it was going to be.
completed, you can't look
Or
at
if
it
you complete.
anymore.
But that's the same thing that we see with leads and with tests. It's no longer a one-shot deal. It's administrators being in classrooms periodically and getting
Yeah.
feedback as what you're seeing. And correct me if I'm wrong, Karen, you know more about this than I do. It's really picking out some things when you're in there that you need to sit down and have that professional dialogue about, this is what I saw. You're not in there to evaluate the whole scope of the expectations of the teacher.
But it's seasonal, and it is ongoing, like Rhonda said, because, for example, the first stage that we're talking about, there's a whole bunch of stuff that has already gone on since January. The audit, working on next year's budget, is coming down the pipe very soon. The evaluation staff and how the principal evaluation has progressed. So there's a lot of things that I think building the blueprint is what we're doing. We know we're gonna try to do the earthwork and the foundation first, but you're gonna still go ahead and gather information about drawing the whole thing. We're not in the process of building, sort of. A little bit, we're getting the information in order to build, but we're not doing the building. So the evaluation being ongoing, there's little pieces that are gonna be milestones along the way for gathering information that we'll have to talk about.
And I think the goal tonight was to have that conversation about what does that look like for us in this partnership? What are the things that, again, I don't see any way in the world we do all six standards and all functions in those standards. So what are those things that we feel like together we need to be moving towards and building the evidence so that we see whether we're making that progress or not making that progress or not.
Well, I appreciate the fact of this because it brings back home to me, quite frankly, you can't be right when you're a SB back. Because a lot of things that we do this, we have to participate also.
Set the direction.
I mean, you can write a plan down, but if we don't
Give you the budget.
cooperate with that and work with you on that, and we give you the resources you need to support, there's not gonna be a plan.
And that's what we like about
So
this.
it's
You
got to be,
heard the,
yeah.
what's the name of it?
And
Yeah, and talk about the progression of how this whole process is rolling out across the state, from teachers to building level administrators and central office administrators to the superintendent. And, you know, that's why they all kind of interconnect, and they've got a lot of fluidity between them. Because as a teacher, if you don't provide those kinds of resources and support and programs for me to be successful in the classroom, how can you hold me to success? Same thing, it's that partnership.
Which kind of is one of the questions that I've had about, especially with that here. Y'all thinking along the lines of what are you gonna need to make this happen? I'm not sure that you have all the tools, so that's the new thing.
Yeah.
I mean, don't run out of plans.
And then the annual, since, do we look at two of these standards a year or just focus on one?
The recommendation from the pilot project has been to do 2 or 3. I think that for the first time we're doing it, let's scale it for success and just do 2.
No, I agree. I was just curious, for
Yeah.
the for the future, how.
None of the other superintendents that were there with their boards had done more than 3.
Right.
None of them. That was Greenbrier, no,
when was
they're
there?
from Northwest Arkansas. Not Silent Springs, but Gentry.
Okay, so Wynn wasn't there, the board, none of the board members, the superintendent was there, and they'd been a part of it since the very beginning. And they had, by far, he had even done the staff survey and all that.
Well, but he was on that.
Right, he was on that,
He was on that.
yeah.
And it sounded like some of them had only done something like night before they came.
Well, even Gentry though, and I had a handout from them, I mean, they had simplified it even more, which
Yeah.
scared me, because it just,
It is very complex though, and it's hard to get
Yeah,
arms
they
around
had the whole
that.
board from Gentry.
yeah, but they had their kind of worksheet.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
They
did.
did.
And they just done that, I
Yeah.
think.
Yes.
Yeah, they had, the night before.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that was the group that the night before, and I was going, okay, yeah.
And then there was a guy from Arkadelphia that was there, a board member.
So I would say to the board, what are reasonable next steps for us? Would we like to talk about this at the June work session and just talk about standard 2 as we've done with standard 1 tonight? Or do we want to go a little more in depth with Dr. Kimbrell and look at some self-evaluations of just standard 1 and talk about products and actions and so
That would be my preference, would be to delve a little deeper into standard 1 and talk about what you see,
Okay.
perceive to be strengths and places to work on. So
Will that be done in a closed?
Yeah, that's the next question I have.
Yeah. I
Taking
think
it
so.
to that next
Yeah.
level,
That-
I
that
think we
detail.
should.
Yeah.
I don't know what they had, this is WINS, what they had done to actually outline some of the data sources, to provide evidence for the actions. Did they give y'all a copy of this? I'll make a copy for y'all, or we'll scan it, we can get the red.
They didn't have nothing.
They didn't give us anything like that.
Popping things up on that screen,
Well,
that
and
telling
I
us
think
it's
the
on the
superintendent-
website.
That's about what it
In
is.
Greenbrier, he'd gone through and done his.
And WIN had done, I believe this is WINS, because Greenbrier, Superintendent Greenbrier wasn't there when I was that night. I think this is, pretty sure this is WIN, and this is Gentry's, and they had
Yeah,
standard
Gentry's,
one.
they showed us.
Yeah, we saw
Yeah.
And
Gentry's.
it's on
That's
one page.
Yeah.
And, you know, for standard one, evidence of community involvement, meeting agendas, news reports, sign-in sheets.
No,
I think we
that's,
gotta go beyond that.
Yeah.
they've done that tonight before.
Yeah.
They're gonna have a checklist before long, and it's gonna be.
Yes.
Yeah, so.
He showed us the sign-in sheets.
And that's not.
And we don't-
quite
Actually,
all.
barcode scanners.
But you know, that's.
But this is pretty good. I mean, they went through and looked at some things such as, we
I
talked
mean, I
about
thought
one.
Greenbrier, what they kind of shared with theirs, they didn't have the, you remember what Greenbrier was, Michael?
They had taken, I think they're the ones that had done 3 of the standards.
Yeah.
This is Mountain Home, I'm sorry.
And they had,
No. And he's leaving.
what did they do?
I forgot.
Because they had, they're the only group that had something to put in every little quadrant of those sheets that we were
Well, we
with.
put stuff up there.
Oh,
We
yeah.
didn't do this yet.
That's what we did.
It was based on
Trying to pass a
alleged
village, leave me alone.
understanding what we had done.
We were just
But this-
glad,
this was
we were
about
just
home, so
glad
I'll
we
share
didn't
this
all
with you.
have
Just
separate.
give some ideas of what they're
Yeah.
looking
That'd
for.
be interesting.
Uh-huh. We sat down and they started talking about, each other went, they were in the wrong class, you know?
We said, oops.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that they put on the 1D is mission and vision posted at every school, put on stationery and website. I mean, that's
Okay,
kinda
what he
what we-
said.
Yeah, you know, that's kind of what's the evidence that we're really promoting, that we use a mission to get people to, you know.
But, you know, I think one of the things, and Rhonda said it very well just a minute ago, the process that we had developed through our rubric, and we had really,
Done.
I mean, we could have done something like they did if we would have known to put it on paper. Or we could have brought our rubric. Because we had really gone through a lot of the thinking process that they were leading the groups through.
Yep.
But you were in the middle of that when y'all were.
Right, I know, and that's why I said we need a rubric.
Yeah.
And so we all took part of it, and then we kind of did this,
Mhm.
because we were doing that. So that's why our rubric looks
So-
similar.
Mhm.
So if all wasn't in vain.
Yeah.
So, if I'm hearing enough agreement then, at the June work session, we'll go a little deeper in an executive session on standard 1 and review Dr. Kimbrell's self-evaluation and begin to chart out whatever else.
Well, and then to Rhonda's point, do we need to look at policies in the board part?
I don't know if we have to for this year, because again, it's a pilot. I
Okay,
think this is still in that developmental stage. and-
so we'll just do your contract renewal in what we do in between is our business.
Right. And you may want to use that instrument again in January that
Yep.
you used before.
Yeah.
Or we may be so far down on this
We'll
one.
just do what
Feel
we
good?
want.
I want to have it as an option available.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right.
And then next session is June 1st, just so you know.
June, Monday, June the 1st.
Oh, well.
Yes. I got it on my calendar.
All right, any other discussion on item number 2? Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 3, finalize the 15-16 school board meeting dates.
What's it that we need to decide on, November and December?
December and March.
December and
Yes,
March.
ma'am. December falls on Christmas Eve, and the
Oh, we don't
March
wanna-
date
we don't
falls.
wanna do that.
during
Why?
spring break.
We could sing carols.
And we had suggested the week before that,
I had put that in there.
17th possibly.
17th, possibly
December 17th and March 17th. Just,
And those would be the Thursdays.
those will actually be
Thursdays before the Thursday we moved to.
Yes.
After the second Tuesday of
Yeah.
the first Monday.
thank you.
The third Thursday after.
Third Monday.
It's the Thursday after the third Monday is what we've changed to.
Thursday
Yeah.
after the third Monday, okay.
I know, I had a hard time wrapping my head around that one.
And that's only in odd number years. That's an even number of years.
Next year we have a leap year, that's throw it all off.
So,
Good with that.
December the 17th? What was the other one?
March 17th.
March?
March 17th.
Will we need to officially vote on that at the May meeting? or-
We just share the calendar in June usually. I don't think you guys vote on it. We haven't in the past, it's just something we share with the
It's
public.
information item.
Yes, sir, information item.
Okay, so in the last work session, you had a very nice handout of all the dates on the normal little sheet that would list them all for the year.
Yes,
So can you update
I
that
will.
sheet with?
I'll do that tonight if you.
Email that.
I will do that. I'll
Pretty
check all of them.
Thank you.
Pretty please.
Heather, I bet we could put it on the school calendar that Devin just did. That way they have everything on.
Did y'all see the school calendar?
I did,
Did you
and I
like
printed
the?
it.
Yeah, it's nice, I did.
Would it be helpful if all work the dates were on that, so you can just have that one calendar?
You'd rather
Don't
have.
go to all that trouble, at least for.
Don't make it too busy.
Yeah.
I'm talking about just for them, I'm
Oh,
not talking
okay.
about for the public. I'm talking about we could shade your dates
April 9th.
on that, so that way you can just have that one calendar.
We'll try and see what it looks like. It might be where the
Whatever
other
your-
stuff might overlap on that
Don't
calendar where it might be harder to
Break
read.
up any systems.
I guess I,
So, you're gonna send this to us then? Yes, ma'am, I'll send it to you tomorrow when I update it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one thing to discuss for months.
It looks really nice. It's all
March the, whatever, parenting conference, all it now.
I think it's on.
Heather, could you send that calendar to me? Okay. Okay, so we got business.
Yes, sir.
Devin, the meeting, it's on the website.
That's where I got it.
you saw it on the website.
I did.
It's on the slider right now on the website. This is what it looks like. It's color coded and it's got like important dates over here and it's got all the school numbers listed there too, but it's on the slider on the homepage. Click.
How exciting.
Everybody seemed to like a visual calendar versus just a list of dates
Yeah.
that were there.
I'm just glad to have information. Why? I love information. I'm an information thing.
Any other items for number 3, the calendar board dates? All right, last one is board member announcements. Anybody have any announcements? I know I do. I guess I'll go. As some of you may know, I've been offered an opportunity to take a position with my company, and it will require me to move to Northwest Arkansas, which will mean that I will likely be resigning my seat, leaving my seat. My last projected board date, meeting date will be in June. I'll be here for that meeting. And then after that, I will be transitioning to Northwest Arkansas to take over operations for a new division of my company. So I wanted to bring it to your attention. I know that there are some things that will have to be put into motion at this point. Selecting somebody to fill my seat on a temporary basis, or whatever the decision the rest of the board decides to make on that. My seat is open in September for re-election.
That's what I meant for election.
What's the timeline for applying for that position if you want to seek the position for election?
It's sometime in July.
It's in July that you
I
have
don't
to-
know the exact date, but it's sometime in July.
There's a window in which it opens, and then a window that it closes, and it's
Usually the first full week of July.
I guess I'm just thinking if we want to have a good candidate, we should put out that information as early as possible, regardless of whether they're appointed or not. wants to be appointed, or what decision we make there, we want to be candidate for the next 5 years.
And this is zone, which zone are you in?
See, that's the thing about it, I live in Zone 5, and I'm over election 2. He's at large.
And you're at large.
So.
You better
he's
run
like
for
around
Zone 5.
5. And leave that at large position open.
Yep. Because that at large might be interesting.
Yeah.
Well, and, I mean, you know, I think timing on this would be everything. In a sense, like I know you have your timeline, but also for the board, where opportunities timing is going to be pretty critical. The opportunity to place someone in, you know, for them to apply and us to offer them it temporarily and then to run, there's going to be a very small window of it that everyone just might need to consider what that looks like. I do think having another person is valuable to us and having that in place. We've always felt that.
And y'all done that before, right?
Yeah, we've done that several times, twice.
Please, yeah. Scott got on board that way, David got on the board
Yeah,
that
two
way.
of them, Scott and David.
So, you know, we know that system and we know the value of it and we respect that. And also respect the group and having that seventh person as soon as possible fill the slot. I know that we can very quickly go ahead, even upon the decision, I think, and post something so it can happen pretty quickly afterwards. So you're not, you know, fiddling around waiting, but still that timeline's going to be real short for someone to make that decision. Because I don't know if yours is the last meeting in June, for us to get that done, you know, we just need to consider that. I also feel like the at-large position is a larger pool, quite frankly, of candidates to choose from. You know, if there's something to consider there, and I know
That's, I mean,
I can't.
you can't move that, I mean, it's a position that is actually open, it's the only position that you can look at. My only concern about not filling it is, again, you got 6.
Yeah,
You could run into a situation
I know.
where you got 3 and 3. I don't know that would happen, but it could.
it could. And I mean, I just know that there are times even with 7 of us, that if we have something important that has to occur before October 1, like expulsions and things like that, it's hard to get. I mean, I really do hate to leave it.
So the interim person has to come from Zone 5.
Yeah, because that's,
But what if Scott decided to run for zone 5, he still could run for
Oh,
zone
yes.
5.
he could run for
because that's
zone
September.
5, but then the interim person would have to.
Run for,
Either run or that's all.
yes.
I have a question in terms of what is, you know, is there a timeline in terms of policy or law? If, you know, do we have 30 days to fill the vacancy? Is there a timeline to set by the board? I mean, if we don't do anything, if the quorum board or the county judge appoints somebody?
And I believe it's 90 days. I believe I'll have to check that law. I believe the board doesn't do it, the appointments board could. In this case, they call it wouldn't, because you got the upcoming election. This board has.
July, because it was July 1, July, August, September, right?
But we have also been, and Mr. Sanders pointed out timeline, we have to think about how long we take applications. In the middle of the
Yeah, you
summer,
would have
you're on
to do it.
vacation, you know,
You almost
I would
have to.
agree that you have your timeline, but at the same time, if we're trying to fill it, it may be very hard for us to have someone in place as well. Because we're in the summer vacation season and all of that, to be able to make an interview or however we decide to do it.
David and Scott, tell us, because Richard Abernathy took care of that before, to apply. Because I know we had applications.
Yeah.
I got it from an email that was sent out this week.
Yeah, oh, it was publicized, because I applied for one
Okay.
that y'all selected.
But I mean. We're never gonna let it
There.
Sorry.
Well, and I think that's what we have to make known.
I just didn't know how we did it.
I
Richard did it.
thought I remembered it being publicized.
Yeah, he publicized
Yeah.
it, okay.
And there was a posting on the website as well.
Yeah, it was like a job offering.
I just knew that it was, there were our application.
Yeah.
Because to have it open for a number of times to get applicants, then arrange time to talk with them, and then to make a decision. That late June, early July is just filled with vacations, and
Yeah.
it's gonna be hard to have someone in place.
Well, you have to, what we did last time was they actually presented themselves at the board meeting. Then we voted in executive session.
I think Springdale just went through this, I just happened to be flipping through coordinates from up there, and they interviewed 5 candidates.
That's about how many I've
to
been
do,
through.
and actually they, in 1 year, replaced 2 of them.
Well, we just about did that,
Yeah.
David and Scott, we're real close together.
Well, let me throw this out there then, would it help in terms of the timeline if I moved up that effective date instead of having it be in June? For the sake of the district and for the sake of finding the right person to backfill this seat on a temporary basis, to move that timeline so that basically the end of, by the time the board would be the end of this month instead of June 14th. Would that assist in any way?
Well, that we would be able to advertise and June board meeting, we would be able to, well, they could do their present.
Your last meeting would be May, is that what you're saying?
No, it was, yeah, well, actually, and I'm not even gonna be here for that, because I have to be out of town on business.
Your original plan, your last meeting would be in June. Or you're suggesting that you might move it back to the May meeting?
Effective, like, immediately.
The reason I asked the question I did about the timeline for the election is that if we're going to appoint someone, we want to appoint someone that is actually interested in running. So we don't want to appoint someone after the deadline that cannot sign up
That
to
was
run.
Yes, looking at the election this past year, June 8th was the first day to circulate petitions, which was a Sunday, so that would make that June 7th. July 1st is the first day to file a petition, and July is the deadline. So you've got just a little bit of time.
We almost have to, because
I don't see how otherwise
I
we
just
wait
think
till June.
for the sake of the timeline.
I agree.
You know we don't want to urge you out.
No, no.
But at the same time, we want to do what's right for the district as well. And we
Completely.
appreciate you mentioning it.
Completely agree, and I want to support the district. I want them to find the right candidate to backfill my position, open up the opportunity for anybody to do this. And it'll just open up the time frame some more to find that right person.
But, and just on process, do you have to announce your resignation publicly at a meeting, do you not? Or can you send it by letter?
Letter.
Okay. I was here back in 2002, 2003, when they would just read them out loud. Those were interesting times.
Well, actually, when Larry Mitchell and Jim Davis resigned, it was just a letter that we read. I mean, they were there,
Yeah.
and it just said as a, I think Larry's was able to do it.
As with any elected position, you can leave that position with virtual.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. I didn't know what.
There's nothing that
If
binds.
that occurred, if the letter came, we accepted it, so we can do, accept it.
Just noted.
I don't think you have to accept it.
It's just
I
like.
mean, if you didn't accept it, what would it matter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, as an elected official, you.
Just a notice, it's really just a notice.
Well,
Or revoke your pay.
The county clerk.
Yeah, my question to that was, then that could occur at time, and we can be prepared immediately when we receive the letter.
Well, I think that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. Then
Make the announcement.
we could say for 2 weeks,
And then the
we're gonna
next
have
meeting,
it
we vote.
open.
Yeah.
Y'all appointed me before Mr. Davis had his last meeting.
That's right. I think you're right.
Because I was here for the last meeting, so I already.
Yeah. Because he let us know, because he was moving.
Then you take the Christmas lunch at
now knowing what you know.
Friday.
Give me a real,
It was a problem.
what you see, like, we can send out the information and let applications go and look at it.
So if that's the case, I'll have a letter prepared and out to you guys before business Wednesday. I've got a meeting tomorrow that I gotta be in, so I'll have to know Wednesday.
And then,
I really do.
I do too, because we've been, as I told you, it's been a real team here. And I think that's all set up.
From being stranded in the snowstorm in
Yeah.
Denver
Yeah.
to
But not
Fort
in Denver.
Moses.
Look,
But, I want to tell you, Michael, your integrity is,
Well, thank you.
I'm a second.
and, through all the tough times we've had, the good times, bad times, you've been a team player and you've truly kept the district with kids.
I appreciate it.
And great, and I was heartbroken the other day when I got your message.
I was too, and that's one of the things that I'm sad about. Aside from walking away from this community, is I don't think that I've worked professionally in my career with the organization that I'm sitting here with. The ability to stay, have a singular focus about promoting the school district, promoting the welfare of the students, number one, and the teachers, number two. And it's just been our focus since day one, since I came to my first meeting when I met with Mr. Rutherford. It's just been amazing to see. We learned a lot. I can guarantee you that whatever district we land in Northwest Arkansas, I will be attending those meetings to be involved, because I now know what goes on behind the curtain, so to speak. So to be involved with that and to lend my assistance to that district in any form or fashion that I can. But, it's not like I'm running away to the other side of the world in Nepal or anyplace else.
No, Northwest Arkansas is the other side.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, that is the other
That is
country,
true,
right?
but through the professional development that I've had, through the trips, through the just listening and absorbing it all, I've just absorbed so much from all of them in this room. I will have that letter to the rest of the members and to Dr. Kimball by close business Wednesday, so that you can move on to the next step. And I will be here at the June meeting. I don't know if that will make it awkward, but I will be here, obviously, to be an observer of that.
Two quick things before adjourn. I know somebody you got. Whatever she's doing. She said she had the other at 7:30. One of the things a couple of you talked about is, you've got the construction going on in Davis and at Collegeville. David and I talked about maybe going to Davis before one of our work sessions and just doing a tour, maybe having John there. So we could do the work session in June there, if you want to, but get a tour of the June, at the June work session, a quick tour of what's going on there, and then look at sometime July or maybe August of having a work session. We have a work session, a board meeting out at Davis, so we can look at it.
That'd be great.
We've done that before. We used to rotate going to different schools for what we're doing. So
In hopes that it will get more people involved.
But we went to, it didn't work, but
All right,
we
so
did.
we'll just plan it
We
for
went to
June.
Salem and Davis.
We'll just plan to have the work session June 1st at Collegeville. Okay. We can do a tour, everybody can see what's going on and see where we are with that and what it looks like. The second thing, we had hoped to have the student handbook ready for you to approve in May. We have spent, 12 hours, just the leadership team going through what has been brought by the student, staff, committee. Well, just questions of, it needs a complete rewrite.
Oh, no.
Oh,
No, we're not gonna do it this year. No, we're not talking about
Rewrite it
this.
every year.
No.
They just got 7 resignations.
There are terms in there from 25 years ago.
Like,
I mean-
early morning recall, why are we doing that?
You just,
You have no clue. I think honestly, and truthfully, I have to say as a board, I have spent more time
Yes.
and
Well,
angst
we-
in looking over that.
We want to do it like we did the
Hours
policy.
and hours and hours and hours.
Working, we're gonna bring y'all what the group did and our suggestions, and we're gonna meet with them again. After we've done the subcommittee, we're gonna meet with them and say, these are some things. For instance, to give you an example, the attendance policy that we currently operating right now is not in compliance with the new law that was passed in 13. In 11, they did away with excused, unexcused absences. In 13, they put them back in.
Oh.
But
We
we
did.
didn't.
No. So that's one example. So we're working on putting all that back in to bring to you for the update. There's a lot of other just, it's 117 pages long.
Yes.
It's about 2 or 3 times larger than any other one that I found. We have a lot of just language in there that doesn't need to be in a handbook, in my opinion. And we want to work, next year, we'll have the policies all done. We'll have a few that we might have to put in place for some changes in the law. Some things that we may need to change, such as superintendent evaluation for next year's policy. We're not going through wholly rewriting the policy. So that's off the table. Job description, we're going to tweak some of those. We don't have all that to do. So what we want to tackle next year is begin working in the fall on rewriting to the handbook. See if we can take some of the stuff that is it's just language that doesn't need to be in the handbook. Some of it's archaic, some of it's just,
Okay.
it's
Let's give
just
me more word in
explanation.
the
It's been a
handbook,
policy.
Mr. Davis.
So,
I'm not fussing.
No, I know
I
that.
just,
well, no, you don't know. I mean,
Personally,
we're sitting
I
there
would
doing it.
prefer if there was about 3 or 4 pages,
And the stamp one.
personally, but
She wants to read her digest first.
Well,
I know why, I mean, you have no.
Give me the clip notes.
Some of the stuff that we've got in there is just explanations as to why the district is going down this path now, instead of here's the policy.
It's not technical writing.
It's not technical,
No.
it's almost like you're writing.
Yeah,
It's novel,
I don't
novel.
disagree. I wish we could have videotaped a few of the handbook sessions for you over
They
the
went on
last 8
for hours
years.
and hours and hours and hours.
Well, that's not, y'all don't need to do that work, that's the work you
No,
pay
by
us to
the
do.
time it even got to us, it was still hours and hours.
Well, what I'm saying is that,
I'd rather be bragged.
I know,
that's, and I think the policy. Okay, good, it worked out
That
pretty
was
well.
fun. Yeah, it was.
I mean, it took a while, but we had a lot of policies.
I know.
I think we can do this.
Yeah, but I think it's y'all be painless, because right now it is.
But you had the handbook committee with the faculty then.
Got back.
You will be a
got transfer.
Oh, yeah, just like it always.
Well,
Yes, and we've gotten there, rewrite, some of it's good, and some of it, well, like the tenant.
He's already said, he didn't say it was
Well,
good, he said it was
well, that's
bad.
bad.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, that would just be, you know.
So, we will
I
have
just
some,
wanna know,
we'll
are we
send
gonna
it to
make
you
the
in a
sleeves,
couple
or
of
are we
weeks,
gonna have to wear
so we
sleeves?
start looking at it.
Just
But
please
we'll-
have the
that's
dress
proven
code
to
down before you come.
Okay.
Down
Or
the
can we have holes in the pants?
Down to where it's dry.
I just think there is anything for
Yeah.
that.
Can I have my piercing in the
The
nose or
point.
on the
No,
ear?
just your nose or your ears.
Like, I don't care. I just don't care if you have a piercing. I just don't care.
Just show up and learn.
I know, that's
And
where
respect
I'm at.
others, that's the only rule I ever had.
Let me just
Respect.
ask.
Everybody respects
You
others.
said this was, she said, I can't wait till you try to explain that.
What is the action you need from us? Because
Nothing, because it's the
I feel like in the past, it was get around all these tables and people go through stuff and look at this page and that page. So what are you needing from us? When you send us something, what do you, I mean, is it time for us to propose suggestions? Or
Yes,
just say,
and
hey,
what we send you will be very similar to what Mr. McGowan did for
Okay.
policies. So you'll see the changes, we need any comments that you have, you know, could you think about this, and we'll give you feedback, just like Mr.
Because if
McGowan.
I think there should be 50 hours of homework a week, I want to have the liberty to make that suggestion.
You go right ahead.
You
I
are
don't know
the
why.
So you were
I'm
the
one
crazy
that
fool who made that suggestion.
Once you put anything in policy, you're not gonna enforce it.
Exactly.
That's right.
And you can't enforce 50 hours.
I think we had that conversation this morning, didn't we?
Yeah, we've had that conversation.
I'm-
Or do you want to go around and enforce measuring everybody's length of their sleeves or their shirts?
Or
their
the width of the
socks or
holes
their-
in their pants, no matter where
No,
they
not the
go.
Or
width.
their straps.
Yeah, the stripes are 2 inches. On the ground, starting like that.
You can see how much entertainment this has provided us over the.
Sorry.
Well, it wasn't really entertaining today.
And just, if I can add something to what you said, Mr. Rose, comment, just keep in mind that when you get it, we're trying to just get certain sections in compliance with law. So we don't have time to work on,